Some final thoughts, Quentin, some final thoughts, another gratuitous slide. And if you want these slide decks, go to a site called gratisography.com. It's in all my slides. And I know this guy. I did a webinar about 2 years ago. His name's Steve. A guy came up to me at Ignite in 2017 and said, hey, I was on your webinar. I actually know the guy. This guy, his name's Steve. Anyhow, final thoughts from your side, Quentin. I
guess the next slide
35.
Yeah. So I think that's it. I mean, the top 5 tips that I have is first, assess. Do a proper digital assessment. I mean, we've also learned our lesson. The more in-depth your assessment, the better decisions you can make. The second is to rationalize. Use the 5 R's. Look at rehosting, re-architecting, refactoring, rebuilding, and replacing. And the third is, of course, doing your data first. Move your data with your app. But move your data first. It's easier to move. If you're running SQL Server, the database migration assistant, awesome tools are going to push your data into the cloud, and also give you a review on whether you can do that. So it's going to, again, it comes back to assessment. Then the last 2 would be automate, automate, automate. Push everything in DevOps pipelines. If you don't want to use Azure DevOps, use GitLab or whatever you use. GitHub Actions, also very cool. Use whatever you can to automate, 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 and then finally instrument. And making your code observable is the foundation of making sure that you have a reliable, secure system. And I'm also saying secure because instrumentation can give you things like, if you look at Azure Defender actually told people that they had been hacked on the Solari Gate hack and the Sunburst malware, because it actually showed them that these accounts are trying to get access privileges that they're not supposed to.
Great.
That's my thoughts.
Is that it? One last question before we close off today's show. Skill set in IT, right? It's a big thing. Here's a perfect example. I used to be a SharePoint architect, so I could walk into a really big bank and go, let me build out your SharePoint farm. Right? And that was my stuff, right? Index mirroring, user profile services failover, SQL up the wazoo around clustering and availability groups and all of that, and Windows Workflow Foundation, and I've got a 10-server farm, and I beat my chest and look at me, I'm a SharePoint architect. That role does not exist today. It's gone. It's gone. It's the same with Exchange people, right? I don't have to build an Exchange server. I go and I spin up an Office 365 tenant, give it a domain, and 43 minutes later, everything works. I can has cloud, right? So it's really about transitioning your current skill set into what happens in the cloud. Now, if you go into the Azure, if you go to portal.azure.com and you go look at the amount of blades that are available, or the amount of options that you can click on, there's over 400 options in Azure. 400. That's more than any services that you can run on-prem. So if you need to cross-skill and you need to move your skill set from worrying about a piece of tin running, right, or that backup tape, go to the cloud and you're still worrying about things, but what you're worrying about is different, right? So think about SRE, right? You're making sure that the environment is able to scale when you are hitting more than 4,000 concurrent connections. Elasticity, right? We talked about elasticity, right? And now you start worrying about trend mapping for the next year so that you can scale. In the old days, you'd have to go back to your CFO and say, hey, I need 3 million Rand over the next year because I'm running out of tin. I'm running out of disk space. You don't run out of that. So think about the headaches. Look at the problems that you have on-prem and see the value of moving to the cloud because those problems disappear. Doesn't mean that you become obsolete. It just means that your skill set, and that's what Microsoft Learn is all about. And we also do a skills adoption plan during our cloud adoption framework. I had to throw it in there, ding, 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 tangent bingo.
So also just on that, I mean, all of the cloud providers realize that this is one of their biggest challenges, is not only to transition skills. So there's a ton of free learning on learn.microsoft.com. AWS has also got a ton of free learning. All of them have a lot of free learning, and it's about transitioning to the cloud. As a business, as an IT department, and as a technical resource, as a technologist. 5 years ago, I wasn't in the cloud, and I also had to transition, but I'm not as old as Al.
Yeah, I'm a Rhodesian old, right? I'm a Rhodesian Ridgeback, right? And that wraps up today's show. We will be sending out a link to the on-demand show that you can watch. We'll also be slicing and dicing one specifically around Quinton's top 5 tips. We've hoped you enjoyed our journey today, and we'll catch you in a fortnight. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.